Hi there, it's Sarah here from BJC Health, coming to you from Sydney, Australia. Thanks for showing an interest in one of our educational events. You're about to watch part one, so enjoy the event. If you've got any questions about the content, then please consider joining BJC Connect, where you can access all of our facilitators live. Otherwise, please consider leaving a comment and we'll do our best to get back to you.
Thank you, Sarah. And yes, I was just saying to Sarah, I'm really sorry. I cannot guarantee that my family on the other side of this door is not going to make some noise if the Blues are doing well, and that might end up on our recording, but at least we have a good reason for that. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about nutrition through the ages. And originally when Sarah said, can you do a chat about this? I thought, sure. And I was going to prepare something where we talked about some of the nutritional considerations, especially for our 40s and then our 50s and then our 60s. But when you do the research and you start looking into nutritional considerations for each of these special decades, the same messages start to come up from your 40s, then all the way through. So then what I thought I would do, I pivoted and I thought I'm going to highlight the particular areas that seem to be essential for us to be aware of, for overall health, for bone and joint health, for brain health, cognitive health, which is really important moving from your 40s onwards, muscle density and heart health, preventing high sugar levels. So the things we're going to talk about is there to help us with holistic health. And I know that a lot of us at BJC are managing arthritis, and that's important too. So this is going to take that into account. But it's looking at managing chronic disease, preventing chronic disease, looking after our muscle mass that you want to preserve from your 40s onwards, because this is when we start to lose muscle mass. We want to look after our bones, our joints, our heart, prevent high blood pressure, prevent high sugar. And we want to look after our eyes from things like macular degeneration, for example. And we definitely want to look after our brain in terms of productivity, concentration, memory, and hopefully reducing the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. So if you have questions, I always say I'm going to try not to talk for too long. I'd like to be here to answer your specific questions so you get what you need out of this. So I'm going to highlight some of these areas, give a bit of a brief explanation as to why they're important, just talk about the food sources for where you can get these nutrients from, for example, and then come at me with all of your specific questions so that I can answer as many things as possible. So from your 40s onwards, we have changes in metabolism, we have changes in our hormones and our hormone levels. We definitely have changes in muscle mass. It's actually seen in research that from the age of 40, you actually just lose a certain amount of muscle mass every year. And we have to try and do something to preserve our muscle and to prevent as much of this loss as possible. Sometimes our body fat percentages go up, which is something that most of us are not a fan of. For men, that risk in heart disease can always be quite high, but it's particularly high from your 40s onwards. As soon as women go into menopause, our cardiac risk factors match the risk factors for men as soon as your hormones drop off and you stop having your cycle. And a lot of women don't realize that where we've been more protected throughout our lives, that protection actually significantly decreases post-menopause. And also with our hormone drops, we have a much more increased acceleration of bone loss. So increasing the risk of osteoporosis and osteopenia, which is the precursor to osteoporosis. So energy levels, a lot of people will talk about the energy levels are not so great. And then things like your blood pressure and your blood sugar levels might start to creep up. So what do we need to do? One of the most important things from our 40s onwards is to ensure that we have adequate protein intake. So the general recommendation for protein is 0.75 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body mass. But as we age, as we go into our 50s and our 60s, some of these figures will say that we need up to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, especially if you're doing strength exercise. And some of the distribution of how you eat this protein around exercise particularly, and strength exercise particularly, is quite important. So I'm going to say, as a basic range for men and women from 40 onwards, you need to have a minimum of 50 grams of protein a day. But most of you in this chat will be looking to actually achieve somewhere between 60 and 90 grams a day. And you can get this from animal protein, and you can get this from plant protein. And if you're very interested in knowing about how much protein is in certain things, when we have time for questions at the end, I can talk a little bit about that. Okay, so protein is going to help you preserve muscle mass. That's really important. It can help you support metabolism, which we all want, and it can help you recover, especially the wear and tear in your muscles. Something that we all need, and especially if you're doing this exercise. Where do we get it from? We get it from lean meat, we get it from eggs, we get it from dairy, fish, chicken, tofu, legumes, protein-rich vegan type products. So protein powders, vegan protein powders, tofu, as well as things like quinoa is one of the grains that has the highest amount of protein in it. There's lots of different places, nuts and seeds, lots of different places you can get your protein from, regardless of whether you are a meat eater or you're not a meat eater. So protein's one of our number one things to consider and ensure that you're getting enough of. All right, secondly, what comes up if you're looking at nutrition in the ages from 40 onwards is calcium intake and vitamin D. Because this is an increased risk time for osteopenia, osteoporosis, fractures, breaks, etc., calcium is something that is very keenly looked at by GPs, rheumatologists, endocrinologists, dietitians, for example, and exercise physiologists who are interested in what you're eating will also ask you about this. So dairy, fortified non-dairy products like oat milk, soy milk, almond milk, for example, will have calcium in it, yogurt, cheese, and then you'll get some calcium from things like leafy greens, oranges, almonds. They're not as high as dairy and your non-dairy fortified calcium products, but it's important to know that you can get calcium from other places. Chia seeds is another good source of calcium as well. Vitamin D is also really important for your bones. It's also less well known for the fact that it helps people with their mood. So when we have hormonal changes in this time, and I'm not just talking about women having hormonal changes, because men have hormonal changes too. When we have dips in hormones, can make us feel tired, irritable, moody, more emotional. These are all very normal reactions to your hormones changing in your 40s, 50s. Maybe not so much in your 60s, because for most people by then the hormonal changes have happened and women have moved into menopause, and so a lot of mood, etc., will balance back out again. But vitamin D is really important for good mood. It's important if you have depression or just generally feeling different because your hormones might be changing. And in periods like we've just had, 3 weeks of almost continuous rain, we get a lot of our vitamin D from the sun. And vitamin D is dubbed the happy hormone. That's its nickname. So when we don't have a lot of sun, there are people that feel like they need that top up of vitamin D. Vitamin D is something that I say if you have a yearly, like an annual blood test with your GP to test cholesterol, sugars, etc., put vitamin D on your list if you haven't. Also, if you have arthritis, a lot of people with inflammatory arthritis, research has shown that their vitamin D levels are actually low. And once they correct their vitamin D levels, some of their pain from the arthritis can actually resolve. It's definitely not a cure, but I've had a lot of clients in the past that when they've been found to have low vitamin D, their rheumatologist or their GP will start them on supplements. And as their vitamin D corrects, they notice that they have a certain percentage less pain than they had before. So the vitamin D is important for mood, energy, your bone health, as well as potentially pain associated with inflammatory conditions. You need 600 to 800 what we call international units, capital I, capital U, international units a day. We get most of our vitamin D from the sun. In Australia, margarines need to be fortified with vitamin D. Although I know over the years that a lot of my clients don't like to eat a lot of margarine, so it's not necessarily the best source if you're on an anti-inflammatory diet or you're trying to eat a lot more natural plant foods and you're trying to get your good fats from avocado, for example. But that is somewhere that they have to legally put vitamin D in margarine in Australia. You also get vitamin D from fatty fish, egg yolks, and there are some foods that are fortified with vitamin D, particularly if you are on a dairy-free milk. If you're on an oat milk or you're on an almond milk, I absolutely recommend that you only choose brands that fortify their products with calcium and vitamin D. If you can also pick up one that has vitamin B12 as well, then the triple of the milk being fortified with those three things, especially if you are a vegan or working towards being very plant-based because you're trying that as part of an anti-inflammatory eating plan, then having a non-dairy fortified product with vitamin B12, vitamin D and calcium is your winning combination. With calcium, you need a minimum of 1,000 milligrams a day. I would suggest that most people try to go for 1,200 milligrams a day. If you have osteopenia, that's your recommendation is 1,200. And if you've actually been diagnosed with osteoporosis, your recommendation will be up to 1,500 milligrams a day of calcium. Most people can't get that just through food because you'll be drinking like 5 serves of milk a day and you won't have room to eat a lot of your other food. If you're on a dairy elimination to test if it's helpful for reducing pain with arthritis, which for a lot of people that works really well, eliminating dairy, then you're certainly not going to be drinking 5 cups of milk every day. The average milk has 300 milligrams of calcium in it per 250 ml serve. So most people that need 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams of calcium per day will be supported with a supplement. And I can talk a little bit about that in the question time. Okay, one of the next most important things to consider as part of your nutrition from 40 onwards is omega-3 fatty acids. Very much linked to anti-inflammation, very much linked to positive heart health. It can be really good for eyes, skin, hair, you know, the whole lot. So omega-3 is quite important. We get this through our fatty fish, things like plant-based omega-3, so flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts. Some people will take supplements, and depending on what you're aiming for, again, a lot of people need to take some supplementation, especially on the day that they don't have the fatty fish, to get to the levels that are recommended. So ideally, most people would be having a very minimum of 500 to 1,000 milligrams of what we call EPA and DHA fatty acids. So when you look at a omega-3 bottle, it might say 1,000 milligrams. That's actually not the part that you're looking for. You need to turn to the back of the bottle and it will tell you, broken down, how much EPA that supplement has and how much DHA that supplement has. And you add those two together, and to get 500 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams, you might need 2 to 3 omega-3 capsules of just a normal brand of omega-3 that isn't concentrated. If you're looking at omega-3 for your mood, if you have low mood, if you have depression, omega-3 is definitely being linked to helping. You need to try and achieve 1,800 milligrams of EPA and DHA. If you're looking at it for anti-inflammation for arthritis, the research recommended amount is 2,700 milligrams. Now, I can see quite a few people have a pen and paper out where they're writing these figures down, which is amazing. Please remember that this has been recorded, so if you want to come back to get these figures, it will be at your fingertips tomorrow. So 2,700 milligrams. So I recommend that you buy a concentrated fish oil supplement if you are going to take fish oil. Because if you want to get to that level, an ordinary fish oil, you would have to have about 12 of them a day to get close to 2,700 milligrams if you want to try it for arthritis. If you do a concentrated one and you add the EPA and the DHA together, most of the concentrated ones will give you 500 milligrams added together. Times that by 5, you'll get to 2,500, and that's where most people will sit when they're trialing the omega-3. And remembering it can be on a day that you don't have fatty fish. So for example, 85 grams of wild cooked salmon has 2,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA. So on that day, you don't need to be taking 5 supplements of another 2,500 milligrams. So once you get to know what's in some of your food, you can then adjust what you take from a supplement point of view because of what you've decided to eat that day, depending on what's on your menu. But omega-3, fantastic for your brain, for your eyes, for your heart, and for anti-inflammation. So we want to get some of that in our day. Fibre is really important, the next category. When you look up research around nutrition considerations for in your 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s, fibre is one of the ones that comes up all the time, very consistently. So fibre is really important for your digestion, for your bowels, for cholesterol lowering. It's linked in with blood pressure control. It can help regulate your blood sugar level if you're having the high fibre, low GI carbohydrates. The low GI are the ones that send the glucose that you make, your body breaks it down, the carbohydrate breaks down to glucose. It's the one that drips this glucose into your system slowly. So you're not getting these really high bounces in your blood sugar. The other thing is if you're having really good quality carbohydrates, they can actually help to feed the gut microbiome in your gut, the bacteria, which can be fantastic for anti-inflammation and for helping to prevent chronic disease. The research that's coming out with gut health at the moment is thick and fast. There's so much of it because they're thinking gut health is one of the keys for reducing the risk of chronic disease. And so fabulous fibre, high fibre, whole grains, lentils, legumes, fruit, vegetables, nuts and seeds, can actually potentially be one of the things that help us diversify our gut microbiome, all of those beautiful bacteria in your gut, which might actually help to manage chronic diseases in the Western 21st kind of century. How much are you aiming for? Women are aiming for 25 to 30 grams of fibre a day, and men are aiming for 30 to 35 grams of fibre per day. It's actually quite tricky. A lot of my clients in the past have said to me, how do I know? So even with all of these things we're talking about today, if you want to bring it together quite easily these days compared to what we did in the past, which was manually count everything. So you get something like MyFitnessPal or Easy Diet Diary, one of these apps that does a food diary for you, and it will calculate your protein intake, your calcium intake, your fiber intake, saturated fat, etc., everything you will be trying to achieve, magnesium, iron. Easy Diet Diary doesn't go into all of the nutrients as much as MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal will tell you almost everything. So if you're really interested in trying to pinpoint where you might not quite be reaching these recommended amounts, something like a food diary app can help you do that quite easily. Okay, antioxidants. If you hear me talk quite a lot as part of the anti-inflammatory diet, you will hear me talk about antioxidants, polyphenols, all these beautiful phytochemicals that come from fruit and vegetables in our diet. But these foods also give us a lot of our vitamin A, C, E, and then we also talk about selenium. So antioxidants are going to help you combat oxidative stress. So when your cells in your body, they can become radical, and then they can damage other cells in your body. And this is called oxidative stress. We want to not take antioxidants, we want to eat natural foods as much as possible. So we want to eat foods that are high in antioxidants, because this can blunt that response and manage that oxidative stress that happens through a lot of different things. It can happen just through metabolism of food. It can happen because of pollution in the air. It can happen because we're stressed. It can happen because we have a virus. So there's lots of different reasons why you will have this type of stress in your body, and a lot of it is just natural processes. But if we can eat foods that are high in antioxidants, it can help to blunt this and help your cells stay as healthy as possible. We need to eat berries and fruit and vegetables, nuts and seeds. These are the things that have most of these vitamins in them. A little bit of caution. Selenium is what we call a trace mineral, trace vitamin. You don't need very much of it, and it is one of the things that can become toxic. People have heard me talk about Brazil nuts and how they're amazing for selenium. You only need one Brazil nut for your entire day's worth of selenium. And it's recommended that you don't eat more than 2 Brazil nuts a day. So if you love Brazil nuts and you know that they're high in selenium, and now you're keen on getting more antioxidants into your body, please don't overeat on Brazil nuts, because actually that can end up toxic and backfiring on us. But with a lot of the other fruits and vegetables, there's like no safety concerns there. You can eat plenty vegetables, smaller amount of fruit because of the natural fruit sugars. Still very important to have fruit, and we shouldn't be worried about some fruit sugar. But I have had clients in the past that come to me and say, oh, my sugars are a bit high, and then I find out they're eating 7 or 8 serves of fruit every day. Then that's not so great if you're also trying to manage your sugar levels. Okay, a few more to go, and then you can start shooting your questions at me. Magnesium is really important. as we age for muscle function, especially if you're trying to strengthen your muscles, increase your muscle mass, decrease your body fat percentage. If you have restless legs, find it hard to sleep, then magnesium could be something that's lacking in your diet. Again, you would look at trying to increase magnesium-rich foods, but if you need to, then you would also take a supplement. Magnesium helps you with blood pressure regulation. It's important if your blood pressure is high. It can help with energy. Where do we get it from? Green leafy vegetables. We get it from nuts and seeds, legumes, lentils, whole grains are our magnesium-rich foods. If you're a female, you need about 300 to about 320 milligrams of magnesium a day. And if you're a male, it is a tiny bit more. I think it is 4 to 420. It's 100 milligrams more per day. If you are taking a supplement for magnesium, because I know a lot of people do this, it's quite good to take it 45 minutes or an hour before you go to sleep, especially if you're finding it hard to relax at night, because it helps your muscles to relax. Try not to take more than 300 milligrams of magnesium. Most supplements for magnesium are 300 milligrams, but that's already the recommended daily intake. So if you're getting it from food as well, you don't need to, more is not always better, I think is the message. Next very important thing for those of us over the age of 40, and I'm well and truly in this category. I don't think Sarah is, but I am. She's nowhere near it, actually. She's like young still. B6, B12, folate, really important for brain health, super important for energy and metabolism. It's very important for red cell formation. So many of us know about iron deficiency, so anemia, but you can actually have folate deficiency and B12 deficiency anemia as well. So really important for your red blood cells. As we age particularly, this is probably one of the ones that are particularly important in your 50s and your 60s, maybe not so much in your 40s, but the enzyme that helps with B12 for us to absorb B12 through our gut into our system, that enzyme can particularly become compromised in our 50s and our 60s, and we can more easily become B12 deficient. So that's another one, like the vitamin D. If someone comes to me and says, my energy levels are low, but my iron's okay, my doctor checked my iron, they checked my iron studies, because that's the one we think of when we get super tired. I'll always say to them, have you had your B12 checked? And not as many GPs will think of that as a more annual check or a 6-monthly check. And they'll say to me, no, I haven't. I said, go and get your B12 checked. Go and get your folate checked, because these are the ones that sometimes fly under the radar that we're low on. We're not absorbing them as well as we used to. And they will often give us the same type of symptoms as if we're iron deficient, especially that low energy. So I think that one's really important. Where do we get these from? We get them from whole grains, eggs, meat, dairy, leafy greens, and legumes. It's really important to remember that B12 you only get from animal products or UV light exposed mushrooms, but they have to be mushrooms that have been activated. So if you're buying mushrooms thinking that they're helpful for B12, just ordinary mushrooms, unfortunately, some of those ads back in the 90s or the 2000s where it was all about mushrooms were the meat for vegetarians, unfortunately, that message was not properly sent, because regular mushrooms are not high, or they can't release the B12 unless they've been UV activated. And you can buy the mushrooms that are helpful for that. You can buy them that have been activated.
So you've just finished watching part 1 of one of our recent educational events. Hope you enjoyed the content. If you'd like to access part 2, then you'll need to sign up for BJC Connect. It's a free platform where you can access not just the recordings of past events, but also access a whole range of upcoming future events and access our team of facilitators live. All of the details that you need to join BJC Connect are now flashing up on your screen. But otherwise, like our staff, subscribe if you'd like to see more information from BJC Health. Look forward to seeing you in an event soon.